It's a beautiful city of Wilsonville in the state of Oregon. My name is Jong-woo Han. I am the president of Korean War Legacy Foundation, which has about 1,500 interviews of Korean War veterans, not only from the United States, but all other 21 countries that participate in the war. We are doing this to preserve your memory because it's been already more than 70 years ago since the breakout of the Korean War in 1950, and we want to honor your service. But at the same time, we want to challenge the reality of Korean War as forgotten war, so that this interview will be analyzed by the teachers fellow that working for my foundation, and they will make it available as a curricular resources for the other history teachers when they're talking about the Korean War in the context of Cold War. I think, and I believe that is the best way to keep your legacy and the place of the Korean War in world history. That's why we are doing this. It's my great pleasure and honor to meet you, sir, and thank you for coming. Please introduce yourself. What is your name, sir?
Bob Wickman, W-I-C-K-M-A-N.
What is your birthday?
March 25th, 1931.
1931, that makes you 90. I don't see any wrinkles in your forehead.
Well, that's what makeup does.
Is there any secret that makes you so healthy and looking young?
No.
No?
I don't want to be old.
Yeah, of course not.
No. There's no secret.
You look great, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah. And where were you born?
Minnesota.
Minnesota. What city?
It was a township called Aiken. A-I-T-K-I-N.
A-I-T-K.
T-K-I-N. A-I-T-K-I-N.
T-K-I-M.
N, Nancy.
Atkin.
No, Aiken.
Minnesota.
Yes.
I know, Minnesota. It can be cold, it can be very hot, but beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful. Please tell me about your family background, your parents and your siblings when you were growing up.
Oh, gosh. I have an older brother.
Mm-hmm.
And they lived in a town or a city away from Aiken, Grand Rapids, Minnesota. And then they moved to Aiken, where I was born. And my dad was in a grocery business. Mom was pretty much a housewife and a hard worker. And my brother and I grew up getting in trouble and staying out of trouble and doing lots of good things together. Yeah.
So 2 boys in your family.
2 of us, yes.
Uh-huh. Younger brother or older brother?
Brother.
So you are the second
Yes.
and the last.
Yes.
Tell me about your educational background, what school you went through and what high school did you graduate and when?
Well, I went to school in Aiken from kindergarten up through and into the 10th grade. And we moved to Oregon in December. We left Aiken in December 1946 and arrived in Salem, Oregon in January of 1947.
Uh-huh.
So then I was a sophomore when we left Aiken and enrolled in the Salem High School. At that time, I was just the one high school in Salem.
Salem, S-A?
Salem, Oregon, S-A-L-E-M.
S-A-L-E-M.
Yeah,
Salem High School. And when did you graduate?
1949.
Before we go into the more details about your Korean War experience, I want to ask you, did you learn anything about Korea from your high school?
Very little.
Very little means there was something?
Oh yeah, I was mentioned about it in a paragraph.
Oh?
No, it was very little. We knew that it was over there, but that was about it, you know. And although we had good geography classes, that was a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But at least you were informed about the location.
Yes.
That's pretty good, actually. Compared to all other interviews that I have done, they didn't even know where it was.
Well, I didn't really know where it was, but I knew of it.
Okay. So after graduation, what did you do? September 1950.
Yes.
And that's already, by September, the Korean War was on.
Yes.
Did you know about that?
I did. I have some good friends who were in the Marine Corps Reserve in Salem. And they had been activated and were over there. And, well, they were in Korea. Well, I was getting close to being drafted. And I wanted a choice. I didn't like somebody telling me what I had to do like that. So I did make the choice and took the oath for the Navy. And for 4 years.
When did you join them, enlisted?
On September 28th, 1950.
28th.
Yeah, 9/28/50.
So where did you get the basic?
San Diego.
San Diego. Can you tell me about what kind basic training did you get?
Oh, it was, they kind of brainwash you from your normal thoughts so they can re-educate you in a military manner. And that's fine. I think boot camp was about 11 or 12 weeks, I don't remember exactly for sure. And we had classes in seamanship, and we had classes in all sorts of different categories, you know. And then we were interviewed during about 6 weeks into our training. We were interviewed to find out where they think we might be best suited. Well, I wanted to be in aviation, but my vision was such that that was no good. When I enlisted in the Navy, I had to memorize the eye chart. I really did. In Salem, Portland, where I took the oath up there, and down to San Diego. With the name of W, I would be at the end of the line. So by the time I got to the eye chart, I had it memorized. And
To cheat your vision?
Huh?
To cheat your vision?
Yeah. My vision was uncorrected, was 6'8", which isn't very good.
You were smart.
Huh?
You were smart.
I don't know about that. But then anyway, when we went to the interview, not being in the aviation, the interviewer asked me if I wanted to, what I wanted to be. I said, well, I like aviation somehow. Well, you can't fly because of your eyes. Do you want to be in electronics? And I said, no, or electrician, no, nothing like that. So I said, well, what about a hospital corpsman? And he said, are you sure? I said, well, I've always been interested somewhat in the medical area. So he knew where I was going to go right away because of the attrition in Korea. So when I got out of boot camp, I was sent over to Navy Hospital then for training in the hospital corps training, and that was 8 weeks. And then after graduated there, they said if you study hard and if you're an honor man, you'll get your choice of the duty stations available.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I studied hard. I was on number 10 on the honor man deal. So everybody ahead of me got what I thought was the best duty. I ended up with the best duty and stayed in San Diego. It was there on ship's company or the staff. And then my first duty station in the hospital was on a ward. The number of the building was 36-1. We called it Death Valley because we averaged a death a day on that ward. It was older people, older to us, were about 45 or 50, and they were debilitating problems, you know, and that's the way it was. Well, I had not had any boot leave, so I don't know when it was, in January or something like that, or after. I got leave and came home for a couple of weeks or so. Went back, and then I got the real good duty station in CSR, Central Surgical Supply, which prepared instruments and so on for minor surgeries on the ward, like excising a cyst or something like that, you know. And it was there until 1952, and then was sent back to NTC on ship's company.
What is the NTC?
Naval Training Center in San
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And I was there until February of 1953.
Mm-hmm.
The orders for going to sea on a ship actually usually came in the first Monday of every month. So week by week they bypassed us for going to sea. Well, the orders came in on the one Monday, I think it was probably February 12th or something like that. And those went to sea on a transport ship, supposed to. So on Tuesday morning, we thought we were clear, but then we got 8 of us corpsmen, got orders to go to the Marine Corps. So from there, went to Camp Del Mar, which is in Camp Pendleton, and went to school there. That was a 4-week school, 2 weeks of combat medical, and then 2 weeks being a Marine, in quotation marks. and then in let's see, May, yeah, it had to be May, late May, I was in the 33rd replacement draft. We boarded a ship in San Diego and went to Korea. The ship was the USS General Meigs, M-E-I-G-G-S.
Hmm.
And it was a good ship.
What kind of ship was it?
What kind of a ship?
Yeah.
Well, a converted Liberty ship, I think, or it's just for transporting troops.
Transporting, yeah.
Yeah, troop transport.
And when did you leave for Korea?
In May.
May
Yeah.
1953.
Yeah, yes, and we got to Korea in June.
Mm.
I don't know, about June 9th or something like that, I think it was.
Where did you arrive? In Incheon?
Incheon.
Mm.
Yeah. Anyway, from Incheon, then we went to Ascom City, and then we were sent out to our units.
So what was your unit?
Where I went to,
No, unit, yes.
when I got to Korea, went to units.
Yeah.
I went to the 3rd Battalion, 7th Marine.
3rd Battalion.
7th Marine Regiment. And I was put in item company, which is I company. They called it item company at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I started. They were in, the 1st Marine Division was in reserve at that time. So that was good. And then I was actually ended up in the 3rd Squad of the 3rd Platoon of item company. So that would be the outfit I went up on the hill with.
So can you describe exactly the location where you served? Is it north of Ascom City?
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, well, after, when the division went back online, we were up above the 38th. We were up in, north of Sunsanee.
Munsanni?
Yeah, north of there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was on outpost, the main outpost was Boulder City, and the outposts were Berlin and East Berlin.
Berlin and East Berlin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, when I got to the company, and you're introduced my squad leader, the platoon sergeant, the squad leader in the tent there, he said, well, welcome aboard, Doc. He said, now, we'll take care of you as best we can, but he said, if you live 48 hours, you're going to be okay. So I thought, oh boy.
What a welcoming.
Yeah, it was. Well, it was honest. And
That much severe battle going around at the time?
he went,
That much severe battle going around there.
well, we went back on the hill. It was very severe.
Ah.
Yeah, we went back on the hill on July 5th, 1953. And that's when we went to Boulder City, and that's when they had the outpost Berlin, East Berlin. Yeah, and we relieved the Army, I think it was the Army 25th Division. And they had sent it, the Marines had sent an advanced party up to the area.
Mm.
And
So you were trained as a medic,
hospital corpsman.
hospital corpsman,
That's the term the Navy uses. Yeah.
right?
Yeah, Army uses medics.
But
It's terminology.
but you were in the unit where that has severe battles going around. Did you work as a hospital corpsman or
Yes. The corpsman, if the Marines go down on patrol, the corpsman are right with them.
right?
They don't go out and call a corpsman up or anything like that. You're with them. And many times corpsmen had to go out and bring them back,
So tell me something that you still remember dealing with the wounded soldier, or please.
Well, the first wounded soldier, or wounded Marine, was a Marine came in holding his eye. He wasn't shot, but the concussion, artillery or big mortars just lodged his eye, and he was holding it. And that was the first wound that I treated.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll always remember that. That was spectacular as far as I was concerned.
What do you mean by spectacular?
That doesn't happen very often. The eyes usually don't come out that well.
Uh-huh.
Easily, I should say. Yeah. But there was that, and I don't know. Corpsmen they're doing different things. We're mother, father, and a chaplain all at once, besides the medical.
Mm.
And we would treat the wounded. When I was, my first deal was to go out to East Berlin. I had been called for some reason, and I still don't know why. They wanted me to go down to a vacated Army facility, a camp, close, inspect it for sanitation. Well, you're trained about that, but I didn't know anything about sanitation per se. So I'm down there and walking up through the area. I looked in the tent and there was a beautiful brand new flak jacket, brand new. The Marines were just layers and they were worn out. This was spun glass. So I went in the tent and I left my flak jacket and put that one on.
Mm-hmm.
I walked out of the tent, and there was a second lieutenant Army came by and said, "Doc, where did you get that jacket?" I said, I thought, I'm in trouble now. I said, "Well, I found it in that tent, Lieutenant." And as luck would have it, per se, the chaplain's Jeep driver came up and said, "Doc, we need you to go out on the hill." So the lieutenant said, "Well, it sounds like you might need that more than me. So I'll take yours and turn it in, and you can have mine."
Oh.
Now, that flak jacket was about one size too small. I was a little bit huskier than I am now. But I kept it, and I wore it. And it worked. And so then we went back down, and then I was to go out to East Berlin that night. The corpsman who had been out there had been killed, and his name was Jim Rooney. And I didn't know him, he was in the 31st or 32nd draft. He was a little ahead of me, but anyway, went out to, you go on, they call it a gate. It is not a gate, it's just where you get in.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And when I went up, and we're going up there in the dark, you have to adjust pretty well to the dark and be quiet. We got up to the gate and I fell over a body. Well, it happened to be Rooney. So anyway, we got up there and into there and spent the, 2 or 3 nights up there, and a lot of, they call it H&I fire. The North Koreans, or I don't know what Chinese or North Koreans, but they were firing on us all the time, with mortars and to keep our heads down.
Yep.
And so we were there, and then there was the trench line. Normally a trench line was like World War I, you see in the movies.
Yep.
5 or 6 feet. This trench line around the outpost was only about 3 feet or so. It had been blown in. So anyway, the So I didn't have to go for a while. So, yeah. But you know, that's very serious thing, but it is kind of funny.
Yeah. Bob, you enlisted Navy because you wanted to choose rather than being ordered to go or something.
Yeah, rather than being drafted.
And then you went for almost like 2 years of medic training and practices in the United States, away from the war. But at the last minute, in June, you went into Korea and belonged to the Marine. And then you were in the far front line of the battle until July 27.
Yeah, I was on the hill the night the flares went up.
What a change.
What a change.
Yeah.
It was. It was quite a change. Yeah.
So you were there about a month, right? Or 2 months?
Well, I got there in June, so it was
2 months.
early June.
Yeah.
Maybe a month and a half.
About a 2 month, one and a half month.
Yeah.
But that was one of the most severe battle period because nobody wants to lose any inches of the.
No. There were, I wrote it down on here, we had, between July 24th and 26th, that's when the North Koreans or the enemy was trying to overrun and take the outpost. There were 43 Marines killed, 360 wounded.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, obviously we were kind of busy, you know. And, yeah, it was pretty hairy.
You have must been witnessed so many wounded soldier and the death.
Quite a few.
What were you thinking? Were you afraid? Were you able to deal with it? It's a kind of.
Well, I think at that age, you are, what is the word? There, you are, yeah, I can't think of the word, which means that you're gonna live forever, you know.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that's what you think of at that age. You know, I was actually old when I was there compared to the Marines. The Marines that I was training were 19, 18, 17 years old. And I was, 22. So, anyway, yeah, it's,
Were you afraid?
oh yeah, I lived in constant fear.
Mm-hmm.
I was afraid all the time.
You were thinking that you were going to be killed.
Well, I didn't know if I'd be killed or not, but I just didn't like being hurt. I'm bruisey. You can look at my arms, how bruisey. Yeah, I don't know really how to explain it, but at that age, your mindset is such that you're going to make it. You know, nobody's going to get to you. Yeah. I think that in the training, I don't know which part, whether it be in San Diego Hospital, Corps School training, or in the Marine, probably the Marine training. A corpsman has to be objective, but you are still subjective.
Right.
So I was fortunate to, I think, obtain most of the objectivity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What kind? You must have carried sort of the bag for the medicine and so on, right?
Well, we did. They had what they call a Unit 1. It was a bag that you carried over your shoulder.
Mm-hmm. Unit 1.
Unit 1 is what it's called.
And what does that have inside?
Oh, battle dressings, scissors, tapes, morphine.
Morphine.
Oh yeah, we all have morphine with us. Yeah.
And were you able to do some sort of surgery, simple surgery? No, you were able to sew?
We could if we had to.
Uh-huh.
I did not. I didn't have to. I had a buddy who was wounded, a corpsman. Yeah, he was wounded in the leg with shrapnel. He pulled the shrapnel out and sewed himself up. Yeah, little knee anymore. Yeah, yeah, but that's what we carried in there. And however, we had the clothing we had was World War II.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they show the World War II guys all these saddle pockets in their trousers and so on, and then their jackets. Well, we did not necessarily carry the Unit 1 with us. That was an identifiable thing.
Mm-hmm.
If we're going on patrol, there's two groups of people who are identified, or three. One was the lieutenant, carried a .45 pistol. The other was a radio operator, because he had the
Yeah.
radio. And the third one was a corpsman. So we never carried anything identifying us visually as corpsmen. Because they, that's to get rid of us, but
Mm-hmm.
they were kind of in trouble, I guess. So we used to take the battle dressings and all of our gear that we potentially would need and stuff it in our pockets. And we also carried the weapons. I carried grenades. Fortunately, I never had to use it. I would, pretty lucky.
You are very lucky.
Yeah, I was.
Were you able to write letter back to your family from there?
Yes.
What did you write about?
Well, the letters are long. Yeah, I told them you don't tell them everything. You just tell me where you are and what the weather is. And, you're okay. And we moved there and moved there. And so on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you told me about the day of July 27, the armistice. What was it like to be there, seeing the war is unofficially ending?
It was pretty good. They had, after the fiasco on Berlin and East Berlin and Motor City,
Mm-hmm.
the Marines of the United States gave up Berlin and East Berlin. So the battle was at Boulder City primarily. And that was where most of the casualties probably came, because the North Koreans were in our trench lines, and it was hand-to-hand combat. And the Marines were called for BT fire from the artillery, a variable time fire, where, they can program it so that it will detonate above the ground, which it did, And we had some Marines who had never seen that fire, so two of them got up on top of a bunker to watch it.
Mm.
Well, that was a mistake. They both went to farm. Their back seconds open, and they got shot. They didn't make it at all.
Ah.
But, there was this thing. Oh, there was another corpsman, Jack Stanfield. He was in our company, our platoon, and he was severely wounded, and it was on Boulder City toward the end of it there, and he had taken mortar fire, and when I saw him, I thought he was going to be dead for sure. His right arm was going backwards, just hanging by tendons. Well, I have since seen him. I don't know if he's still living, but a number of years ago I got together with him and saw him. He went out to the hospital ship, and then they wanted to amputate. He said no. They sent him to Japan. Fortunately for him, there was an orthopedic surgeon there who Jack had been stationed with at Great Lakes. So he repaired Jack's arm. When I saw Jack, he was able to play tennis.
Mm.
Pretty good. And I had another man I used to see frequently in corresponded with Lee Bryant. He was a machine gunner for a heavy weapons company. And I had treated him. And he had a leg wound. And I had to go out and get him, which is immaterial. But brought him in and got him covered up, all that, evacuated. And he went out to the hospital ship Haven, USS Haven. And prior to going, his weapon was a .45 caliber pistol. Prior to his going, he said, "Doc, will you take care of my pistol? I don't want to lose it." Okay, I say, "I'll take care of it." So in the interim between him being gone and returning to the company, the Marines needed some extra weapons one night for a combat patrol. So I gave it to the Marines, hoping to get it back. Well, I don't know what happened to the pistol. When he got back, he was a little bit upset that I didn't have it happen. Yeah.
So you must have witnessed so many wounded soldiers. Those who sacrifice, they kill, and they cannot tell about those, but you are the one who were lucky, survived, but had to deal with so many wounded soldiers.
Yeah.
So you know about the Korean War, how serious that was at the end of the...
It was pretty serious. Yeah.
And because of that sacrifice, Korea is now and strongest ally to the United States, and the Korean War has a very special place in the world history, but we don't teach about this. We don't,
No, it's sad, isn't it? I've gone to schools since 2000. The McNary High School in Kaiser, where I live, and we speak to the classes. And living history days is what we refer to it as. And we would go to the classes, not a big group, not like the auditorium, individual classes.
Ah.
Talk to the students. Yeah.
yeah.
And at that time, the classes were 90 minutes, which is very comfortable because you can talk to them, they can ask questions.
Yeah.
We could tell them about some of it, yeah.
But we are all numbered and we cannot go on like that. That's why we are doing this. We want to make the curricular resources for the teachers to come for next generation and they can still talk about it.
Yeah.
When did you come back from Korea?
1954, July 54, arrived in San Francisco.
July?
Yeah, yes. It was about July 2nd or 3rd.
Anybody asked you where have you been when you come back?
No.
No. They knew.
Well, I didn't know anybody in San Francisco. Well, I did too. I knew George Takagi, my niece, buddy, his family was from Palo Alto area. And they knew where I was because I had corresponded with them also. And they met me. Yeah. My brother didn't come down, man, but Dick and Lou told me that was their name. Came and met me at the gate, took me out to the top of the mark. And, but prior to that, 6 days out of San Francisco, we had some heavy water up, the seas were up, and we were taking water on the front deck of the ship.
Have you? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
My glasses were up on a jackstay. Regular glasses, they fell off.
Oh.
I always took the top bunk for a reason. If anybody was seasick above me, I didn't want it coming down on me, so I always took the top bunk. And they fell on the floor, or the deck of the ship, or the compartment. The fire watch came over to find out what he stepped on. So I did have a pair of dark glasses that were okay. So when we're up at the top of the mark, I'm wearing dark glasses and in uniform. And I never was a big drinker, never really was. And, well, however, I sure had a lot of drink put in front of me. All these people came by with dark glasses and my ribbons. So, yeah, it was quite an experience.
Have you been back to Korea then?
Yes.
When?
1993.
And that was it?
Excellent.
Huh?
Excellent.
No. Any other time other than 1993? There was only one revisit.
That's correct.
Tell me about what you saw in 1993 compared to what you saw in 1952 and 3, 4.
It's just hard to compare because it was like night and day. When we were in Seoul, and it was a beautiful city. At that time, I think there were 11 million people in Seoul. The buildings were beautiful, and they had their own system, as you probably know. It's building A, building B, and so on and so forth. You don't know the names of them. We were guests of the South Koreans, the military and the government. And we were taken on tours. It was all pre-scheduled. And we stayed at the Hotel Sofitel Hotel. And the food was excellent. I never had such great fruit in my life. I couldn't eat enough. But anyway, the facilities were great. They took us, of course, out to the memorials, out to the cemeteries, and so on. They had a banquet with it. The president came. side of the table, so we shook hands again. So that was unique. And my wife was with me too, of course. So it was great. Fantastic. Fantastic.
Had you imagined that Korea would become like this 1993, what you saw when you left in 1954?
What now?
Had you imagined that Korea would become like
Oh,
this
I had no
today?
idea. I had no idea what it was. No. There was, when I got home, I went to college at Oregon, University of Oregon for a year.
Mm.
And I could not adjust to that school. It was far too liberal.
Mm.
At that time, it was called the Country Club anyway. And there were too many draft dodgers. At that time, if you went to college, you didn't have to go to
Right.
college. So I didn't like that. So obviously, I didn't fit in. So then I transferred over to, at that time, it's called Oregon College of Education. Now, Western Oregon University.
Mm-hmm.
And I went there for 2.5 years, I guess. I never did the other degree. But, and my wife and I were married in 1955. And so, there, when you have a family, there's priorities. So I didn't have time to really worry about trips anyplace. Couldn't afford it anyway. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there was that period, and then
Yeah.
the opportunity came to go to on a revisit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was well worth it. It was a beautiful country, fantastic people. I was, I've had gray hair for a number of years, and the tradition, as I understood, the more you have, the deeper the mouth. Well, some of the people were almost on the floor when they were bowing to me. Yeah. And the children, my wife had a tremendous time with the children, you know, at the War Museum, I guess it was, where they had classes. One class would be wearing yellow, and the other one pink, and the other one green and blue, and whatever, you know. And she would talk to them, just paraphrase a little bit. I didn't know what she was talking about, I had no idea, but she thoroughly enjoyed that. It was great. Wonderful trip, and wonderful.
Excellent. You know, that's a very special experience to be able to see what Korea was and now, and so that you know what you did and what good can come out of,
Yeah.
you know.
But you know, the similarity between the two was the older. In 1950, of course, the rice paddies and the crops were all fertilized in a different manner.
Yeah.
That kind of a sweet smell. We got off the airplane in Seoul in 1993, I smelled it. Right away I could smell it. I don't know why, but I just, you know, it was fine.
Mm.
No problem. We have wonderful guides. Our guide for our tour bus, his name was Grace. And,
I think I know her. I think I know her.
do you?
Yeah.
Well, she's, let's see. I don't know, how old would she be? 50?
Mm-hmm.
Probably not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Delightful girl.
What would you say to the young generations in America about the legacy of the Korean War?
Well, that's kind of a tough one. You have to, I've always been brought up with my family, my folks and everybody, that you do things for other people. And I think that's what it was. I felt good about having been there. I usually feel pretty good about doing things for people yet, although, you know, time is limited right now.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, it's a good feeling, and I think that it's necessary that you do things, you know, and this is a great nation that we have, in spite of what's going on now. But I shouldn't say things like that, should I? But it's freedom of speech. But it's a great nation, and I think it's well worth protecting and preserving, and you have to give to it. After the Korean War, and the beginning of the Vietnam War era, there was a generation of takers.
Mm-hmm.
I want everything I can get. I don't want to work for it, I don't want anything because the givers finally run out. And I think that would be it, that you have to give something, excuse me, to give something to it. Regardless, you don't have to be the service, you can do something that's, like Greg did, Peace Corps, or all sorts of different things that you can do to help people. But I think there might be a turning in the church generations now, younger. I have a couple of granddaughters who are school teachers in elementary, and their attitude is somewhat like that. They have to give.
So be a giver rather than taker.
You better believe it. Yeah, you can't take everything to a solution. There's nothing left to take.
What was your rank at the time in Korea?
Hospitalman second, or hospital corpsman second class. It was me as a petty officer second class, but my job was hospital corpsman.
Bob, thank you for your service at the last phase of the Korean War from early June to July 27 armistice, and you left Korea in the spring of July 1954.
Yeah, I got out a month early to go to college.
Yeah. So, on behalf of Korean Nation, I want to thank you for your honorable service and contribution for what Korea is now.
I'm glad to be able to do it.
Thank you, sir.